Hello and welcome to another episode of Leading with Women by Egomog. Joining us today is a staunch advocate for mainstreaming environmental responsibility, Ruba Al Zu'bi. She's a sustainable development and policy expert who has been channeling her efforts and experience towards generating a greener economy in the MENA region by engaging the private sector. Ruba was the first policy director at the Ministry of Environment in Jordan. She served as the CEO of the Idama Association for Energy, Water and Environment. She also founded the NGO Jordan Green Building Council and led the clean technology sector development component at USAID. Thank you so much, Ruba, for joining us and speaking to us. Just to set context, let's start with this question. We know that the MENA region has a resource dependency issue as well as inefficient energy management issues, right? But we have also seen an increased effort by governments and other organizations where there's an increased efforts towards diversifying energy resources and concentrating efforts to become more sustainable. What is the size of the sustainability sector which you're currently seeing in the MENA region?
The 28 gigawatt renewable energy production capacity installed already in the MENA region represents 7% of the region's energy generation capacity. So we still have a long way to go. Nevertheless, since 2013-14, a lot of progress has been taking place in the region when it comes to clean energy, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. And I believe this is going to even be expedited post COVID-19 pandemic for many reasons. Number one is the recovery process and the recovery strategies in the region are more focused on sustainable recovery and building more resilient economies. And the second reason is that also the region and its countries have committed to the Global Green Deal, and they have climate targets to achieve. So when it comes to clean energy, the potential is tremendous. But let me also shed some light that the region is also suffering from water scarcity. While 4.5% of the global population lives in this region, they only have access to around 1% of the water resources.
Even though you're saying that there is an attempt to make a sustainable recovery from the pandemic, currently what would you say is the kind of how aligned is the MENA region to the Paris Accord?
I believe that the targets on paper are ambitious, but they could be more ambitious. Since 2010, there has been an increase in the energy-based CO2 emissions by 1% every year. Okay. And although some people say that the pandemic and the lockdown and the closure of many industrial facilities and the stoppage of transportation and all of these things, in addition to the oil price slump, has actually contributed to decreasing emissions in 2020. And many argue that the rebound is going to bring things back to the long-term average, which is 1% increase per year. So this puts us really, all of us in the world, behind when it comes to the Paris Agreement and the pledges for reducing CO2 emissions. Nevertheless, I believe that the future carries a lot of hope in that regard. I know that all the countries in the region are trying to set their strategies. Some countries are more ambitious and more aggressive in these targets than the others. I know that Dubai, I think, set a target of 75% renewables by 2050. And in Jordan, we have a target of 31% renewable energy in 2030. I believe that countries see the need more than they see the opportunity. It is not a luxury anymore. It is a must that this region transits into clean energy.
So, when you talk about this transition, clearly we have seen raised efforts, but what are the gaps and the opportunities on this path that you're seeing? And according to you, what is the role for the private sector to play in this current pivot which is taking place?
Thank you. Very important question. So, the governments need to put in place certain enablers to encourage more private sector engagement. And I believe we have seen successful examples in the past few years. But still, most governments are still struggling to find the right recipe because it is a mix of regulations, financing, procurement procedures, and of course there are other enablers that need to be in place, such as capacity building for human resources, vocational training, access to finance for various types of entities and enterprises, as well as there is a lot of infrastructure investment needed as well. So there are certain enablers that would encourage more work in this sector. And I think Jordan has really played an important role, and I believe many countries in the region are trying to benefit from the Jordanian experience. I know that Morocco has done a great job as well. So I believe it's a combination of public and private sector efforts. Now, with the recovery and with the sustainable recovery that we're aspiring for, I believe that the private sector can see the opportunities. Building resilient economies would need a different mindset. So looking at technology, innovation, the integration of ICT within the clean energy and sustainability sectors is extremely important as a key enabler. And then we also see, the potential in the MENA region with a lot of youth, a lot of educated youth and women who are not yet heavily engaged in this sector. So I believe there's a lot of opportunities. And I just give you an example. EBRD and the EU in Jordan have just launched the first of its kind comprehensive green financing, green investment program to support the private sector. And this comes, in response to Jordan's need to adapt to the increase in demand for water and energy, accompanied with everything that's going on, but also the increase in population. So I believe even international financing institutions and partners are sending out this message very clearly that we have to rebuild, and we have to rebuild sustainably.
You did talk a lot about the necessity of certain enablers, and a lot of it, as you said, needs both private and public investment. But could you just give us a few examples of some cutting edge technology which you're seeing has been receiving a lot of financing in the MENA region, or let's also say, especially in Jordan?
Let's say that I think cutting edge technology is a big word and is a big industry where it requires a lot of research and development, and then translation these research findings into actual applications. So I know that in MENA region we might not be on the top of the list when it comes to investing in research and development and innovation. Nevertheless, I think we do have a few examples, and I think they come in different forms and patterns. So on one hand, you have examples like Masdar City, or even now with Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with the NEOM project and the lines for smart cities. I think it's called the Lines, if I'm not mistaken. And then, building this futuristic cities concept that will transform the whole urban setting in the world.
But even though, as you said, a lot of the youth is especially coming up with ideas and there's a lot of social innovation projects going on, but according to you, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that they're facing, that even if they have an idea and they have ambitions, what is stopping or what is slowing down actually achieving those visions?
That's an important question, and I always ask myself, what can we do more to support of these young people seeing their ideas on the ground. I believe there's more than one side to that. So on one hand, I believe that we need to inject impact thinking within the minds of our innovators and entrepreneurs,
Okay.
because I believe it's much easier to have an entrepreneur, an innovator with impact and social impact in his or her DNA than to come later and try to introduce social impact again when it's a mature company. On the other side, I believe that we don't have many initiatives or programs that are institutionalized to support innovators and entrepreneurs see their ideas through. So moving it from the ideation stage and maybe the initial prototype towards an MVP and a tested, validated product or service. And the third thing that I think is also very important, especially for our region, is the breaking the silos and integrating science and engineering and technology within the socioeconomic and environmental, let's say, agenda. My work in the government, in the Ministry of Environment, and I'm so proud and glad that I had that opportunity, showed me how the policy making happens, and it also enabled me to understand the bigger picture. So the linkages between institutions, between sectors, and how the different players interact in order to make the desired impact. I managed to be introduced to policies across sectors, to legislation, to understand the role that a Ministry of Environment should be playing in enabling sustainable development. On the other hand, moving forward, later on to IDAMA Association, and IDAMA in Arabic, by the way, means sustainability.
Okay.
And IDAMA is the the business association. So the members of IDAMA, which is a non-for-profit, are all the companies that are shaping Jordan's clean energy future. So these are the pioneers that kicked off the process at the beginning and supported the national efforts in emerging and embarking into this new sector.
Just moving again to social entrepreneurship, because that is an important sector and you do speak very highly about it. So how socially inclusive are you seeing this sector be in the MENA region?
Social inclusion is a big dream, and not only in MENA, globally. And we all know that this is part of the real challenges that the SDGs were created to address. However, I think because in Jordan we have a lot of social movements, a lot of activism, a lot of volunteerism. I can see that social innovation and entrepreneurship is getting more inclusive by enabling a wider range of members of the society to actually contribute, participate, and lead such social innovations. We need all to have this exposure to the global language and to the global terminologies. and also to global resources, because with the terminology and with the language comes a whole platform of knowledge exchange, collaborations, storytelling that we can benefit from.
So it accelerates the speed of change, it accelerates development.
Definitely.
Okay. Just as a final question, you have had you have contributed incredibly to sustainability efforts in your region, and you're highly spoken of. As a woman leader in sustainability, what are the socio-economic changes that you know will happen when sustainability is gender inclusive?
First of all, thank you for that compliment, but I'm just one of many amazing women and engineers in this region and in Jordan. So probably I'm just being lucky that I'm getting interviewed and getting exposed, and that I try to blog and write. But I think we need to make this also possible for all the other women in the region. I believe that empowering women economically, allowing them to participate more in the economy, will generate tremendous and limitless economic benefits and social benefits for the region and for the world. I believe that women are closer to environmental issues. They're also closer to social issues and to people. Nevertheless, I feel they are underrepresented in boards, in civil society organizations, in companies, even in academia and research institutes. Although they might be the ones who are doing the work on the ground, but then their ability to contribute to decision making is still limited. I believe that our economies would shape better, be more resilient, if we had more competent women. And again, I stress on competent women on board, and we have plenty of those, believe me. For the clean energy sector in specific, although it employs more than 11.5 million around the globe, 32% of those jobs are occupied by women. Coming to the MENA region, I think this number will go down. In Jordan in 2016, IDAMA prepared the first clean tech sector report, and I believe the percentage of women participation was 16%. We still have to do a lot, because a sector that's not well represented by all the society groups and community target groups is not sustainable. If you want clean energy to be sustainable energy, because there is a difference between renewables and sustainable energy, we have to ensure that not only women but all community groups are well represented in that sector.
No, well said. And I think, again, it has to be a collective effort and it has to be an inclusive effort. So thank you so much, Ruba, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.